What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto was teleported to another world part 22. And if you did enjoy this video, please give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions with a twist. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 25 Come Together. Let us now begin Part 3 of Titania and the Hunter. And now stop. Canon Epic, hum. When Mirajan heard their newest member hum to herself, she glanced up from where she had just finished cleaning the dishes. What's wrong, Lucy? Are you having trouble looking at the board? She inquired. Lucy Heartfilia, the newest member of the Fairy Tale Guild, moaned in defeat before turning to face the lovely barmaid. Mira-san, I don't think I can handle any of these crazy jobs by myself, she moaned. But I need to start working now or else I'm going to be in serious financial trouble. Well, why don't you take another job with Natsu? You finished that job up rather quickly, and it was a difficult task to boot, so you clearly work well together as a team. Mira attempted to comfort the attractive blonde. Lucy simply hung her head. If I worked with Natsu again, I'm certain we'd just use the reward to pay for all the damages we caused while working. Lucy then pouted, plus, he's the reason we didn't take the 2 million jewel reward for our last job. I mean, it was the right thing to do and all. But still. Don't be upset, Lucy Nichan, exclaimed the blonde celestial spirit mage as she rose from the ground and walked up to the small tiny brown-haired child who was happily coloring in a coloring book at the counter. I'm sure you'll be okay. Natsu Nichan can still help you if you really ask him to control himself, Koyuki said to the new girl. Thanks for the encouragement, Koyuki-chan, but I really don't think it's going to be that easy. Lucy wept as she caressed the little girl's head. Mira just smiled when she noticed their expressions before suggesting, then why don't you take a break for a minute? Give yourself a moment to breathe. Lucy looked at the white-haired model before nodding and smiling. Yeah, maybe it would be best to take a moment to relax, she said as she sat next to Koyuki. She needed it after one of the most stressful weeks of her life. Lucy was a traveling mage only a few days ago, reading about the most explosive news in the nation in Sorcerer magazine and seeking for a guild she could join. She considered joining one of the big-name guilds, such as Phantom Lord, Lamia Scale, Blue Pegasus, Quattro Cerberus, or Mermaid Heel. But Lucy's favorite guild, and the one she wanted to join the most in all of Earthland, was Fairy Tale. Lucy, like any other mage, was aware that Fairy Tale was one of the most popular and well-known guilds in the country. They always stuffed Sorcerer magazine with the most amusing and informative pieces she'd ever read. Mirajan's exquisite stances and modeling skills, only surpassed by Jenny Relight of Blue Pegasus, utterly captivated her. They were well known for their role in the destruction of the autonomous guild Damnation and the overthrow of the Tyrant King, Alexander Sorrento. Most importantly, Lucy said they had the most fun as a guild. Last week, she encountered a particular hot-headed pink-haired guy and his talking blue cat while dealing with some arrogant wannabe jerk calling himself Salamander and trying to sell ladies off into Bosco. Lucy would never have guessed that Natsu, the strange person who seemed insane because he was seeking for a dragon in town, was the genuine Salamander of Fairy Tale and utilized a unique sort of magic called Fire Dragon Slayer power. He volunteered to drive her all the way to Magnolia Town and help her join the country's top guild after he wrecked the boat and saved her, while destroying much of the port, mind you. When she arrived, the first thing she encountered was a no-holds-barred bar fight involving the whole guild. In the process, Lucy encountered exhibitionists, drunks, macho guys, playboys, models with slightly shattered heads after being struck by a beer bottle, and, to top it all off, a big monster that slowly transformed into an elderly dwarf shorter than her knee. It had been a busy day, and as the week progressed, Lucy became acclimated to the guild's antics and even began to converse with some of them, disregarding her nerves and attempting to meet the individuals she would be working with today. Of course, Natsu and Happy were first. These two were arguably the strangest and most uncontrolled couple Lucy has ever encountered. Natsu had never considered holding back, and Happy was a snarky little jerk who seized every opportunity to annoy her. But they also loved their guild as if they were family, and she could never dispute that they were two of the kindest people she'd ever encountered. There was also Levy. She was a nice girl who came over and chatted to Lucy after hearing the rumor generated by Natsu and Happy that Lucy wanted to write a book. Instead of approaching her to laugh or insult her, Levy shown great interest in hearing about her work and said that she loved reading. She wasn't a very good writer, but that couldn't be the case when she began proposing a brilliant concept to Lucy about two friends who ended up battling one another. Mirajan was the last straw. Fairy Tale's poster girl. The guild's most gorgeous and pleasant lady. Lucy's kind-hearted barmaid who constantly listened to her difficulties and issues and tried to assist her find a decent solution. Lucy had to confess that she was anxious about speaking with the supermodel, but she was relieved to discover that Mirajan was one of the nicest persons not just in the guild, but in the whole globe. Lasana, Mirajan's younger sister and Natsu and Happy's close friend. The takeover mage was one of the first to greet Lucy with wide arms and a broad grin when she joined the guild. And, since she was constantly on the lookout for Natsu and Happy to make sure they didn't create too much problems, she always sought to empathize with and console the blonde girl when they returned from their tasks. Finally, there was Koyuki, the small girl seated next to her at the counter. Lucy was perplexed by this girl since she was too young to be a member of the guild and wasn't linked to anybody else she'd met. But Koyuki always encouraged Lucy on, calling her a big sister and wishing her a good time at the guild she loved more than anything else in the world. A fact, Koyuki appeared to refer to everyone as brother and sister, but it still made Lucy feel better when she was unhappy. "Excuse me, master? Do you have any suggestions for jobs to take?" Lucy said. Lucy waited for the small guy who normally positioned his buttocks atop the counter they were seated at to respond easily and relaxedly, but she received no response. Lucy lifted her head and saw that his place was unoccupied. "Huh? Where's master?" she said, tilting her head. "Oh, he went to the regular guild masters meeting," Mira said. "He should be back in a few days, don't worry."
"Regular meeting?" Lucy inquired of the white-haired lady. "Yeah, but since you've only recently joined a guild, I'm guessing you're unaware of what it is." Mira walked over to Lucy. Guild masters from all over the country come together and meet for a few days in a gathering of guilds from each province. From there, they discuss the status of what is happening with their guilds and they can receive their orders from the Magic Council. "Wow," Lucy said, as she learned about the sophisticated structure of inner workings between the guilds. "Yeah, Ji-chan is so cool. He's always working hard when he goes to those things," Koyuki said, looking up at Lucy. "He's always tired too, because he comes back smelling kinda like Kanani-chan."
Lucy's brows widened in dismay, her newfound respect for the master gradually melting away.
"Well, he'll have to work hard," Mira replied over her shoulder as she began to wash the glasses and plates. She went on to say, "He spends most of his time making sure there aren't any new dark guilds to check over."
"Dark guilds? Why would master have to worry about them? Aren't they a problem for the Rune Knights and stuff?" Lucy said.
"Oh no, not just the Rune Knights. Dark guilds don't follow any laws or rules set by the government or the Magic Council, so they are a dangerous group for any legal guild." She returned her gaze to Lucy. "We have to make sure no legal guild steps over the line of what they can and can't do, otherwise."
Lucy remained motionless for a while before gulping. "Oh, otherwise what?"
"They LL swallow up ya soul. Boo. KYYYYAAAAAAA." Lucy shrieked in fright, as Natsu and Happy leaned down to grab their bellies while laughing at her. Lucy was trembling as Natsu and Happy celebrated their little joke. Oh, we got you good, Lucy." Natsu wiped a tear from his eye.
Lucy lowered her head and shook her shoulders as Happy fluttered about her head. "You were scared, weren't you, Lucy?" "Huh." He taunted, "But it was funny, don't you think?" "Huh. Wasn't it?" "It wasn't funny, you jerks," Lucy said as she snatched Happy from the air and spiked him into Natsu's face. Natsu stood like a wall between them as Happy's skull smashed against his and tears streamed down the blue cat's eyes. As the Dragon Slayer asked the distraught blonde girl, "So you didn't think it was funny?" His lifeless body collapsed into Natsu's arms. "Natsu." Someone softly smacked the back of the pink-haired man's head, reprimanding him for his juvenile conduct. He scratched his chin and returned his gaze to see Lasana, Myra's younger sister, pouting at him with her hands on her hips. "Don't scare Lucy like that, Natsu. You know how scary you can be when you try," she said sternly.
Natsu returned her query, "Are you scolding me or insulting me?"
"And Happy," she said, patting the grieving cat on the head. You know you kinda deserved that.
Why listen, Happy exclaimed as he leapt into her arms for an embrace. It's dangerous to do something like that. Lucy's big meaty arms had enough force to crack my head when she threw me at Natsu's thick skull. Wah.
I don't have any meaty arms. You're both insulting me now, aren't you?
Can you blame them, Flame Brain? Gray mockingly remarked from his table as he fired at the pink-haired guy. They're right, you know. You're scary, you've got a thick skull, and you stink pretty bad, he said as he twisted around in his seat.
No one called me smelly, you shriveled dick bastard. Natsu materialized in front of Gray, their foreheads touching. I'm calling you smelly, you hot messy piece of shit, Gray said angrily.
They eventually resorted to hitting each other while they tumbled about on the floor. And there at it again, Lysina said. Mira echoed her chuckle, oh my. These guys don't ever know how to stop, do they? Lucy groaned. They just don't know how to act in front of a lady, my beautiful new flower, Loke whispered dreamily as he moved across the two guys fighting and took Lucy's hands in his own. But I'm frightened. I'm afraid that if I take off my glasses, I'll be blinded by your shining grace, he said, but if it lets me see you unfiltered, then perhaps it would be worth it to go blind seeing a goddess at least once. Lucy had determined she wasn't going to fall for his cliched remarks and gorgeous looks, despite the fact that a statement like this would normally make any lady weak in the knees. Do girls actually fall for this stuff? She deadpanned. Oh, Kitty has claws and is ready to swipe. I'm not even a cat. But I'm sure if you give me a chance, I can show you, he began to examine her. What are those? He asked, pointing. Lucy glanced down at the key holder attached to her hip and said, those are my keys. Are you a celestial spirit mage, by any chance? Yes, I'm sorry, Loke said as he took a giant step back, but it looks like we'll never be able to be together after all. They all stood there watching Loke race out of the guild hall, yelling at the top of his lungs. Lucy hardly blinked before turning to face Lysina, Koyuki, and Mirajan. What was that about? She wheezed.
Loke isn't very good at dealing with celestial spirit mages, Lysana said, looking at the perplexed blonde.
We think he must have had a bad breakup with one before he came to Fairy Tail. It wouldn't be surprising. He isn't the smoothest guy when it comes to all girls. Mira added, but you know that, considering how you just threw off all his advances like that. You must have scared him good. Haha. Loke Nichan is so funny. Koyuki said, looking across at Lucy. Lucy Nichan is scary, but not that scary.
Why is that your opinion of me? What did I do? Lucy sobbed.
Mira and Lysina were laughing at Lucy's sorrowful sobbing when they saw Loke come dashing back in. Oh, he's back. Ah guys, he shouted as everyone turned to him, Natsu and Gray pausing mid-punch to gaze at the attractive playboy panting. The monster duo is back. Urza's coming, he said, pointing outside.
Natsu and Gray yelled, their faces becoming pale, while everyone else began muttering to one another.
Yay, they're back, said Koyuki, clapping her hands and dancing in her seat. Lucy observed everyone's reactions before turning to the Strauss sisters and asking, wait, what's going on? What's with this monster duo stuff? And why are Natsu and Gray cowering like little children who just saw a ghost? Oh, don't worry. They've always acted like that since we were kids, Lysina said as Happy flew out of her arms and began tapping Natsu's face.
Natsu's always been scared like this, Lucy said, surprised that the uber-fearless dragon slayer was sacred of this monster duo, or something. What the heck is going on? She shook her head.
Oh, don't pay attention to the monster duo name. That's just a little joke the guild uses that's caught on because those two are so strong, Mira soothed with a gentle grin.
And what would those be? Lucy sighed. Titania and Hunter. Lucy was certain that if she had a mirror, she could see how large her eyes were and how far her jaw had fallen. Lucy had thought the word Urza seemed familiar, but now she understood who she was talking about.
Titania Urza, she is called. One of the most well-known and powerful wizards, according to Sorcerer magazine. Lucy knew the term, Titania, had gone far and wide as one of Fiore's most dangerous warriors, despite the fact that they had never acquired a photo of her. She was, after all, one of the Apex members that resisted damnation. Lucy still kept all of the newspaper clippings from 3 years ago detailing the bottle's participation. Hunter is another. Lucy had no idea what the guy looked like since he had never had a photograph taken, but she had certainly heard the legends and rumors around his name. A towering man, clothed in black, with a gleaming arm that completed every work he ever accepted. People gave him that moniker because they observed him follow and beat his targets with unrelenting and scary zeal, much like a predator chasing his prey. He'd battled so much and beaten so many people with such brutal persistence that he'd earned the nickname, the Devil, in the underground. Lucy could feel the earth under her vibrate with each approaching footstep as two figures loomed outside the guild's front gate. A gigantic horn that reflected light all around it sat on one of their heads. Lucy shivered and trembled nervously as she awaited the two strangers to enter the guild. She was prepared to encounter two of the guild's most deadly and terrifying magicians.
Lucy was astonished to say the least when they finally entered. They weren't monsters, demons, or anything else that had been described in the news.
One of them was a stunning lady with long, lovely red hair that cascaded down her back and over her shoulder. She was dressed in plain armor, with a Hard Cruise insignia on the left side of her breastplate and a purse slung over her shoulder and down to her side. She was dressed in a blue skirt that fell just above her knee and black boots. A large horn adorned in beautiful diamonds hung over her right shoulder. The other was a guy who towered over the redhead by several inches. He wore black leggings and a long-sleeved shirt that was buried behind a black cloak that reached his boots. He had spiky blonde hair that pointed in every direction and odd marks on his face that looked like animal whiskers. He seemed to be growing a beard, and his eyes were lifeless and immobile, as if he wasn't even there. "I'm back," Urza murmured, dropping the big trumpet on the floor, causing the room to quake slightly. "Is Master still here?" she said, dusting off her gauntlets. "Sorry Urza, he's already left for the meeting," Mira said from behind the desk. "How was the trip?" "It was fine. We just stopped a monster from terrorizing a town and they decorated its horn as a gift." Urza tapped the horn. "I have no idea where I'm going to put it though." "But that can wait." Urza stepped forward and placed her hands on her hips. "I've been hearing about the trouble you've caused while we were gone. You should all know better than to cause so much trouble for Master."
Lucy saw their worried and fearful expressions as the redhead made her small threat. It made Lucy shudder to see so many people she believed were strong cowering beneath her voice.
And what was the deal with the blonde? He was not even speaking. He didn't even seem to be aware of the people around him. Lucy swallowed, terrified by how demanding and terrifying these two were. Kana lowered her barrel. "Geez, Urza's seriously riding our hides today. Naruto, did something happen on the job?"
The blonde guy gave no response or acknowledgement to the card mage.
"Naruto." Several of the guild members exchanged glances. There has still been no response. Elfman approached him gently and stooped down to check on him. He became aware of something and moaned in disappointment. He then got up and clapped his hands loudly very near to Naruto's ears. Naruto awakened from his trance, saying, "WH where oh hey, we're back. Hey guys, how've ya been?" he said to his buddies. "Were you sleeping?" they all said, staring at him. Lucy's jaw hung open as she gazed at the guy blinking his eyes open to rouse them. He was sleeping. He wasn't this terrifying, gloomy recluse who never spoke to anyone. And he practically sleepwalked back to the guild. Lucy was astounded to learn that this man was one of the most heinous scourges of the underground.
"Yeah, just trying to catch up on some sleep. I didn't get enough rest while we were on the job," Naruto said, nodding his head.
They all groaned in unison because they didn't want to hear the specifics. "Not like that, you idiots. I was up for 2 nights chasing this stupid thing down." He smashed his fist against the side of the horn. It kept running and hiding, moving through the mountains and underground. It was an annoying little bastard. "Come now, Naruto, stop complaining," Urza said. "It wasn't so bad."
Peeved. That's easy for you to say, Naruto said, pointing at himself. It was just trying to rip you apart. It was attempting to devour me. It mistook me for a meal to eat out of or something.
That sounds like it was trying to compliment you by eating someone worthy, Urza said with a grin. That's not even a compliment, it's just a pain in the ass.
Oni-chan. Oni-chan, exclaimed Koyuki as she leapt out of her seat and hurried up to the two S-class magicians. Koyuki. Naruto said joyfully as he rose to his knees and embraced her in a hug she quickly reciprocated. Hey, you've been behaving and not causing any trouble for anyone, right? He said as he stepped back a bit. Nope, she said with a smile. That's my girl.
I really don't think that's the way we should be teaching her to behave, Urza stated as she moved over and lowered herself as well. Yep, but I'm glad you're back now. Koyuki leapt over and put her arms around Urza's neck for a strong embrace, which Urza grinned and returned. Lucy stared, perplexed, at the pleasant image in front of her. Wait, I'm confused. Is Koyuki-chan related to them? She said, looking across at Lisanna and Miragen. No, not by blood, Lisanna giggled, but Naruto and Urza have been with Koyuki since she was a baby, taking care of her since she was in diapers and basically being her guardians.
Mira smiled as she watched the two S-class mages focus on Koyuki. There isn't anyone in this guild Koyuki loves more than Naruto and Urza. I'd love to take a moment to relax, but there is still something I have to talk about. Urza climbed back to her feet and brushed off her skirt. Are Gray and Natsu around? She said, looking around.
Aye, sir, Happy said as he glided in front of her, motioning to the side. They're right over there. Why yeah, we're here, Gray said nervously as he and Natsu threw their arms around each other's shoulders like old friends. No fightin', no arguin', no disputes whatsoever. We've been nice and polite since you left. He anxiously cheered.
Aye sir, Natsu said, as anxious and jittery as Gray.
PFFT. Lucy slapped her palms across her lips to resist giggling at Natsu's portrayal of Happy. She turned to Mira and asked quietly what was going on. Natsu and Gray were always challenging Urza as kids, and she always beat them pretty badly, so they've kind of built it into their systems not to make her angry. Good, I don't need to see you two fighting all the time. Now listen, I have a favor to ask of you both. Urza made a stern face and addressed both men. While we were coming back from our job, we heard some troubling news that may become something serious if it isn't taken care of soon. I wanted to talk about it with Master, but since he isn't here, we just have to take care of it ourselves. So, I need you two to come with Naruto and I to make sure the matter is settled quickly, she said, looking them both in the eyes.
EHHHHHHHHHHH. Everyone gasped in surprise as Natsu and Gray were taken off guard. Lucy turned around and saw that everyone was staring at them in surprise. Wait. What's happening? What does that mean? She inquired. We have some pretty strong teams in our guild, but if all four of them actually joined together as a team? Lisanna faltered. Gray, Natsu, Urza, and Naruto. Mira covered her lips. If they really teamed up, they could be one of the strongest teams in the guild, or maybe even Fury. Lucy's eyes widened in surprise as she returned their stare. How powerful would they be if they all worked together?
No way, shouted Natsu before pointing at all three of them. There's no way I'm working with you guys. No chance in hell. Everyone who was anticipating a different response just palmed their face and shook their heads. I hate agreeing with charcoal brains, but me too, Urza. I'm out. Gray crossed his arms in a X, squarely in front of him. Everyone blinked in astonishment before shifting their gaze between the two males and the redhead. They all simply stared hopefully at the blonde guy as he stood there calmly.
Naruto motioned with his finger. Give it a second.
You're right. You both have the right to make your own decisions, Urza said, and it's unfair that I come to you after just returning and ask you to help me without offering a favor or reward. She began walking forward, but this is a grave matter. And we have been friends for years. She gently grasped both of their shoulders, so I'll ask you again. Urza began to emit a black aura as she gave them both a terrible look. You'll both help me, right? Oh, of course, Urza, Gray moaned, we're friends.
AI. Lucy had just felt perspiration drip down her brow. Was it a favor you asked of your friends?
Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. And then they came back from beating up the super gorilla, and they destroyed his entire house. And they didn't even take the reward.
That's amazing. And this new girl beat up the super gorilla all by herself? Naruto grinned as he listened to the small girl on his lap narrate the tale.
Aha, Lucy Nichan is amazing. You have to meet her. Naruto. Koyuki. Naruto and Koyuki glanced up from their seats on the sofa to find Urza standing in the corridor's corner. She was dressed in her PJs and said to the two of them, "You both need to go to bed soon. It's getting late." Ah, X2, they both groaned and tilted their heads before staring up at Urza with tears in their eyes. Don't ruin the fun, X2.
Urza just shook her head and rolled her eyes. Naruto, she leaned against the wall, we're going out with Natsu and Gray tomorrow morning. And you said you were tired, so do you really think it's wise to stay up and play? Ah, it's okay, Urza, Naruto said, smiling up at her. Me and Koyuki haven't played together in a while, and we're going out tomorrow, so I've got to make it up to her by playing now.
Yeah, come on Oni-chan, play with us, urged Koyuki as she hopped about on Naruto's lap, holding a few toys.
I'm sorry, Urza said as she caressed Koyuki's head and kissed her hair, but I've got to make sure I'm ready for the job tomorrow. Koyuki pouted slightly before nodding her head and returning to her toys. Just make sure you don't stay up too late, and come to bed when you're done, Urza said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder.
I'll do my best. I love you. I love you too, Urza said as she leaned in for a brief goodnight kiss, Koyuki gasping and choking slightly at the sight of them kissing. Urza kissed them goodbye and headed back to their room, saying, "Good night, you two."
They waved farewell to the redhead before Naruto yawned into his palm. He wiped some sand from his eyes before glancing down at the young brunette and said, "You know, Urza's probably right. It might be time for us to go to bed."
No, Koyuki objected, swinging her toys about. Come on Oni-chan. I want to play and talk and do all the fun things we haven't done in a long time. I want to spend the whole night playing. Naruto's face became pale as he regretted not accepting Urza's invitation to sleep. He laughed and said, "Why yay. Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. God, you smell like rotten meat.
I bet your dick is permanently shriveled, ain't it? What's that I smell? Have you been swimming through hot garbage again, you dumb bastard? I told you it was just once, and it was for a job."
They just don't stop, do they? Lucy muttered tiredly as she watched the Dragon Slayer and Maker Mage dispute in the center of the train station. Nope, this is basically their entire life, Happy enthusiastically said before glancing up at the blonde girl. By the way, what are you doing here?
Mira-san asked me to tag along, saying she wanted me to make sure Natsu and Gray got along and obeyed Urza-san's orders without causing too much commotion. She scowled at the cat. She also said that you and Naruto-san deliberately add gas to the flame when no one is looking.
How would I add gas to a flame? Happy simply said, I'm just a cat.
You're evil incarnate. Good, I'm glad you came early. Everyone turned to face the speaker, their looks differing. For one thing, Urza was carrying so much baggage that it seemed she was transporting a traveling circus. And just next to her was a whiskered blonde guy who looked like a corpse had risen up and been strolling about. Geez. You look like hell frozen over, Natsu and Gray said to the sleep-deprived blonde guy. Are you all right? Yeah. I spent most of the night playing with Koyuki and I lost track of time. I'm glad Urza isn't the gloating type or else I'd never hear the end of it. He yawned and looked at the two men. I'll try to take a nap on the train, so make sure you two listen to what Urza tells you. It's important. Peeved. Whatever, Natsu said as he pounded his fist into his palm. Whatever this job is that you and Urza can't handle, I'll handle it all by myself. That's why you brought me here.
Hey, dumbass, I think you're misunderstanding something. Gray grabbed Natsu's shoulder and drew him back, glaring. They brought me here to clean up this mess. You're only here for comic relief.
What was it, you wuss? Are you also deaf now?
Before their stare-off could escalate, two hands put themselves between their faces and forced them apart. Okay, enough with the pissing contest. If we're on the train and you two wake me up with your goddamn fighting, I swear I'm gonna send you both home in a gurney. Naruto said angrily. Natsu and Gray wrinkled their brows for a split second before grumbling over to the side. Naruto didn't typically compel them to do things like Urza did when she made a demand, but they knew what he was like when he was grumpy or upset. If he made such a threat, there was a considerable possibility he'd follow through.
Urza hummed as she saw the three guys muttering to each other. I guess I won't have to check on them after all. Happy swooped up next to her and saluted. They aren't worth your time, ma'am. I saw you yesterday in the guild hall. You were talking to Mira, weren't you? Said the armor mage, looking at the irritated blonde girl with hilarious uncertainty.
Lucy recognized she was being addressed and shook herself awake. Yes, I'm a new member, and Mira-san asked me to come along. My name is Lucy Heartfilia, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Urza-san. She bowed to the redhead.
Oh, you can just call me Urza. And I've heard a lot about you. She peered over her shoulder. Naruto. Come meet the new member of our guild. She'll be joining us on the job today.
Naruto approached the blonde female, who shrank under his focused stare. He cupped his chin and nodded. Oh yes, Koyuki told us all about you. How you destroyed Harjan Port, brought a politician's mansion crumbling to the ground, and defeated a 15-foot gorilla all by yourself. Naruto nodded, amazed. That's pretty awesome.
What? Lucy shook her head and waved her arms. I didn't do any of that. It wasn't me. She asked Gray, Natsu, and Happy for assistance. Tell them.
Wow, and here I thought you were the normal one of the bunch, Grace said, staring at the girl as if she were a monster. When did you do all of this? You said you didn't take jobs before coming to the guild. Natsu exclaimed, astonished by Lucy's alleged accomplishments and eager to confront her to see for himself.
She's a freak. Happy said cheerfully. Lucy merely slumped against the wall, her face flushed with tears. The lies. They cut so deep. And they destroy my reputation. Well, I'm hoping to see some of this while we're on the job, Urza said before turning to face the train. Come along everyone, it's time to.
Wait, Urza, Natsu cried, drawing everyone's attention to the redhead. You said you felt bad asking us to take this job without being able to return the favor. Well, I know a way you can make it up to me.
When we get back, you and I are going to fight. No holding back. He clenched his hand and consumed it in flame.
Gray, Lucy, and Happy all gazed at the adorable imbecile as if he'd jumped from a building and fell on his head. Naruto arched his brow before smiling, curious to watch Natsu take on Urza after all the beatings he's taken over the years. Well, it's been quite some time since we last fought. Are you sure all you want is a fight with me? Urza blinked in slight astonishment. Damn straight, I'm sure. I'll fight you. He pointed to Naruto, then Naruto. He pointed to Gray, then this dumbass. He finally pointed to Lucy, and I can settle things with Lucy too. Why me? I'm not strong. All those stories were about you, Natsu, not me. They're lies. Lies I tell you. Lucy sobbed in dread. Don't even try to save yourself from the beating. No. All right, Natsu, Urza said with a grin and a nod. I accept your challenge. All right, cried Natsu as his whole body erupted in blazing hot flames. Great. I can already see the bloodshed happening, said Naruto, shaking his head. What was that? Natsu went up to the laughing blonde and grabbed his collar. I'm not like I was before, Naruto. I'm stronger, tougher, and all around better. Just you wait. When we get back, you're gonna see a brand new. Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. Natsu moaned loudly as he suffered from motion sickness. There was no greater agony in the world for Natsu than sitting in a car speeding down a set of rails. Gray shook his head, and you were talking all that hot shit earlier. The ladies watched as Natsu couldn't stand it any longer and leaned on Gray's shoulder, only to be shoved back. Then he fell again, and back again, once again. Okay, enough of this. Gray said to the woman in blue cat sitting opposite from him, would either of you like to switch? No, I'm fine over here, Lucy said, shaking her head. The answer isn't for us to switch seats, it's to help him relax.
Urza stated calmly as she stepped up and gently gripped Natsu's shoulder while he whimpered silently.
Before she pushed her hand so deeply into his stomach that he was almost pulled out of his seat. The others looked on in despair as Natsu let out one final dying sigh before collapsing with tears streaming down his cheeks. She then took his rolled-up sleeping bag from his pack and put it on his unconscious head, which was resting against the window. She sat back down and straightened her hair before saying to the others, "See, it's that simple."
Wailing on the unconscious guy to get him to shut up, Happy said, raising his paw, "That's Urza for you."
Lucy and Gray merely stared at the little brown-nosed cat. Lucy muttered, "Stupid suck up." Gray added, "Kiss ass." He scratched his head before looking at the S-class mage. "Urza, is this such a good idea? I mean, with the lump of flesh right here and that." They all looked across at Naruto, who was blissfully napping and snoring loudly. "Our manpower has sort of been halved. Are we gonna be all right?"
"We'll be fine, Gray, stop worrying. Take a moment to relax." Urza turned to face Lucy and smiled, "So you've been in the guild for a week now, correct? How are you finding it?"
Lucy nearly didn't hear Urza because she was so preoccupied by the blue and brown hue of her eyes, which she could only detect now since she was seated so close to the older girl. Lucy regained her composure, saying, "Oh, well, I'll admit, everybody is kinda weird."
"How am I weird?" Gray questioned. "Where's your shirt?"
Aw damn it. Gray rose up and disregarded everyone else's eyes as he began searching through his luggage for another shirt. "Anyway, they all seem sorta unique, but everyone's nice and fun," Lucy said, smiling. "And I thought Koyuki-chan was so adorable." "I'm glad you think that. She likes you a lot as well." Urza relaxed into her seat. "She spent all night telling Naruto about how nice you are. So I am hoping to see a lot from you, Lucy."
Lucy flushed with shame at being praised by such a well-known mage. Urza, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what is your relationship with Naruto-san? Mira-san told me that Koyuki-chan looks up to you both like siblings, and it sounds like you were all together last night." Urza's cheeks were flushed, and she looked aside, saying, "Well, you see.
"They're together," Happy exclaimed between them before continuing, "like how a mommy kitty and a daddy kitty love each other very much, and they make an egg." Urza palmed Happy's head and squeezed his skull before throwing him out the train window, the blue cat howling before being entirely blasted away by the high wind pressure. "Well, a poor choice of a comparison, but nonetheless," she coughed into her hand as she slammed the window shut and sat back down. Lucy was taken aback by the redhead's reaction before turning to face the black-haired guy seated across from her. Gray only nodded his head while straightening his shirt as she jerked her head towards Urza. Lucy flushed slightly and glanced between the sleeping blonde guy and the red-headed lady. Her eyes were twinkling. She knew two very powerful magicians who were in a serious relationship. It's every gossip girl's fantasy. Lucy took another look at Naruto and saw his left hand was clad in some kind of metal or gauntlet. "Why does Naruto-san have a metal glove on his hand? I think I saw him wearing it yesterday when you arrived in the guild. Does he always keep it on?" she asked her Urza and Gray.
Gray and Urza exchanged glances before bursting out laughing. "What is it? What's so funny?" Lucy said, looking between them as if she was missing the joke.
"No, Lucy, he doesn't always wear a glove," Urza said as she paused her laughter and stared at the celestial spirit mage. "It's a prosthetic. Naruto's entire left arm is covered in Reformation metal."
Lucy's eyes grew into large white plates as she focused on the lady in the blonde's prosthetic limb. She kept doing it until she sputtered, What? Are you serious? What happened?" "It happened before he came to the guild. He says he lost it because a baby wyvern spotted him walking through the forest late at night, then they fought, but then it ripped his arm out of its socket while Naruto stabbed it repeatedly in the left eye." Gray chuckled. "Oh, it gets better. He says he grew his arm back, but it was corrupted by the power of a demon so it became disfigured." If you believe stories like that. They all turned to gaze out the window and saw Happy clinging to life. "Can I come back in NOW?" he begged Urza. "No, not until you've learned your lesson." "What is the lesson?" "You know what," Urza said threateningly, as Happy cowered and clung to the outside of the glass. This was a bad choice. Lucy shook her head, and Mira-san is going to owe me a lot when I get back. Okay. Now that we're all calmed down, Urza said, dropping her easy tone and becoming serious. While we were coming back from a job, I overheard several men talking about something they found after searching for a long time. Something called lullaby. I ignored them because they were loud and annoying, but then they mentioned a name I had heard before. The name Aragorn. I realized when we were coming back that I knew the name Aragorn. Shinigami Aragorn. The leader of the Dark Guild Eisenwald, and a notorious assassin that has killed countless times for money. But before I realized who they were long gone and there was no way to catch up to them, Urza said harshly. Lucy was trembling in place, and Happy's eyes were welling up with tears. It was partly because the train had stopped and the stench of smoke and gas had filled the air around him, but it was also because of the terrifying narrative. They got off the train and began walking out the door. Gray slung his backpack over his shoulder and turned to Urza. So what are we gonna do about it? They stepped off the train, Urza carrying her extra supplies and bags. I've decided that we need to make up for the mistake I made not realizing what was going on, she said as she glanced straight ahead. We're going to march into Eisenwald and make them beg us to take them in, she said, her eyes hardening. What? Stumbled Lucy. Gray grinned. Okay, that sounds like my kind of plan. You guys are insane. Lucy shivered in terror. Well, when it comes to bringing criminals to justice, it might be best to be a little crazy, Urza said as they all went towards the exit. Naruto. Natsu. I'm sure you two can agree with me. They did not get a response. All the tiny group heard in response was the train's engine blasting before it began moving down the tracks. The fairy wizards peered about but saw no sign of the whiskered man or dragon slayer.
We made sure to wake them up, right? Lucy raised her hand. They all remained quiet before glancing at the train as it passed them by. A rush of wind swept across the platform, turning the fairy wizards white. You know, I actually noticed they weren't here, Happy replied, rubbing his paws over his face, but I was so busy learning my lesson that I.
When the three mages glared down at him in rage, their eyes glowing red and their features black, he was quickly silenced.
Happy cowered in dread before dropped his head and apologized. I'm very sorry. It will not happen again. Please forgive my ignorance. Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. Damn. You. Urza. Damn. You. Gray. Stupid. Lucy. Stupid. Happy. As the contents of his stomach built up in his throat, Natsu strained to lift himself up on the sofa. He swallowed his vomit and attempted to remain motionless, but failed as the whole room spun to try to stop him. Why were they forced to ride the train? Why did Urza have to strike him so hard that his innards liquefied? Why did they abandon him on the train when he was unable to move? And why was Naruto sleeping across from him like a tuckered-out kid? Before rolling over the side, Natsu drew himself to the edge of his seat. He moaned and put his palm over his lips before shaking his head to clear his mind. He crept closer, grabbing for the blonde mage in the seat across the aisle. If he could only get Naruto awake, he could get them off the train, and out of there. Only for a guy to step directly in front of him before spotting anything and blocking his path. Hey, that's a fairy tale insignia, right? The guy inquired. You're a part of a guild, huh? That's cool. So am I. Natsu sighed as this man spoke lyrical about himself. He fought to raise his head and stare at the guy standing between him and sweet redemption. It was a guy around their age, with black hair pulled back in a pineapple-shaped ponytail. You know, you're kind of lucky that you get to be with a legal guild. Always bathing in the light. I bet you've gotten so used to it that you can't even appreciate it anymore. He grinned as he leaned onto the chair next him, clutching the bag at his side.
The guy saw Natsu's eyes darting around, but he received no answer from the man on the ground. Are you just going to ignore me? He hissed. As the dark mage pressed his foot into Natsu's stomach, he flipped on his back and forced him to stare up at the ceiling. Geez, and you guys are supposed to be the best guild in the country. Me and the rest of Eisenwald could easily beat a bunch of wimpy little fairies like you and your. Natsu moaned as the man twisted his foot.
The dark mage sensed a frightening presence ignite behind him before turning around anxiously to see nothing. The train came to a stop, and the dark mage lost his balance, dumping the contents of his bag and a horrific three-eyed skull flute on the floor. The pink-haired mage raised himself off the ground and in between his target and the dark mage before he could reach for the prized artifact. "Okay, looks like I can stand again," Natsu replied, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. "So, you were stepping on me, right?" He smirked at the pineapple-haired guy, shaking his head.
"Fire Dragon's Iron Fist!" exclaimed Natsu as his palm burst into flames and he hit the other guy in the face.
The dark mage was thrown back into the railway car and collided with the door. He slipped down, feeling his face burn and blood oozing from the corner of his lip. Natsu chuckled after sending the guy flying before seeing the skull flute near his foot. "Ew. That thing is nasty."
A shadow hand sprang from the ground and snatched the flute before throwing it across the vehicle to the dark mage. He grabbed the flute but glanced up in astonishment at the Dragon Slayer. "Why, you saw it."
"Whatever, man, this beating hasn't stopped yet." "Oh, and did you say you were a part of a dark guild?" Natsu smirked before hammering his fists together. "Perfect. Let's take our time too. We're sorry, folks. Minor issue with the brakes at the last stop. We'll be back in motion shortly." "Oh shit," Natsu said as he gathered his belongings and began rapidly putting them back on his back. "Hey Naruto, wake up. The train's leaving again and Natsu peered around the seat and saw his blonde companion was gone. "Where'd you go this time, you bastard?"
The train began to move again and build up speed. Natsu tripped and felt his motion nausea return before heading towards a window. "Oh no, you don't, wheel," said the dark mage.
"Ha." Natsu sailed through the sky after breaking through a window, before bracing himself and falling to the earth. He bounced off the earth for a few moments before landing on his hands and feet and watching the train pass by. "Now, where the hell am I going?" he wondered. Natsu turned his head just in time to be thrown back by a magical four-wheeled vehicle that slammed into him. The Dragon Slayer screamed as he sailed through the air before landing on his face and falling unmoving on the ground. "Natsu, we were so worried about you. We thought we'd have to chase the train forever until we got you back," said Happy as he leapt out of the car and embraced Natsu on the back.
Everyone else leapt out of the car and rushed to his aid. Urza exhaled with satisfaction. "Good. I'm glad to see you're still all right, Natsu."
"No thanks to you," Natsu cried, leaping to his feet and pointing at them all. "You left me on the train, asleep, like a bag you forget in a hurry. You guys suck. You all suck." "You're right. I'm sorry, Natsu," Urza cried sadly as she grabbed Natsu's head and hugged him, pressing his skull against her breastplate and caused his brain to leap in his head. "I feel terrible leaving you on the train like that. If you want, you can take your anger out on me if you must." She clenched her teeth. Lucy shook her head and deadpanned. No, I don't think that's going to help us at all."
Gray circled them as if hunting for something. "How'd you get off the train anyway? I thought you were motionless when a vehicle was moving."
"Well, the train stopped, and that gave me enough time to jump out." The three fairy wizards grinned, relieved to hear that applying the brakes at the final station had rescued their colleague. "But it sucked," Natsu said, "because the train started moving again and I was in the middle of this fight with this guy from a dark guild or something."
"You were fighting someone from a dark guild?" they said, surprised. "Yeah. Some asshole from, let's see, Eisenwald," Natsu said, looking at the railway tracks. "He's probably long gone by now."
"Idiot." Urza smacked Natsu across the face and threw him against a rock. "That's the guild we were chasing after. How could you forget what I told you?" She chastised him.
"I wasn't listening. You knocked me out, remember?" Natsu shouted back.
"Excuses," Natsu exclaimed angrily as Urza glanced about. "We have to follow the train. Let's get Naruto and then we can chase after them."
"Oh, wait," Natsu said, scratching his brow. "Was Naruto with you, or on the train?" "Idiot." Urza smacked Natsu once more, yelling angrily, "How could you leave Naruto sleeping on the train?" "Stop hitting me," shouted Natsu, clutching his scorching face and massaging the excruciating swelling. I don't know where that bastard went. I thought he was sleeping on the train with me. But when shit hit the fan and I tried waking him up, he was already gone. I don't know where he is. Natsu became enraged. He was gone? Urza pondered before nodding. Okay, we're following after that train. There's something there that's still important for this mission. Urza returned to the four-wheeler. Let's get ready. The other wizards followed her as she began to connect the SE plug. Anything we need to know about this guy? Other than the fact he was an asshole apparently? Gray asked the Dragon Slayer. Natsu paused. Well, when he spilt the stuff in his bag, this really ugly flute came out, and he started grabbing hold of it and holding it close like it was his baby or something. Wait. Ugly flute? Lucy inquired, raising her head. Yeah. Natsu groaned. It was made out of twisted wood or something, and it had a skull with 3 eyes. I've never seen anything so nasty before. 3 eyes. A skull. Lucy grabbed her chin in meditation as she began to comb through her recollections. Oh no, she said, her eyes widening. The other magicians and Cat glanced at her, shaking their heads in dread. What's wrong, Lucy? You look pale. Happy fluttered up to her face. I just remembered where I heard the name lullaby before. It's a death magic. The mass murdering flute, lullaby.
Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. Here you go, Aragorn-san, one magic death flute. Right out of the packaging. The Shadow Mage, now known as Kageyama of Eisenwald, delivered the skull flute to his leader's skeletal hands as the cries of those being pushed off the now occupied train filled the air.
The commander was a tall guy, taller than most of his troops, with a lean but somewhat muscular frame. He had gray hair and had tattoos on his pectorals and biceps. Under his insane eyes were 2 marks that resembled rising wind, and he was clothed in black to resemble a reaper. He was also carrying a big scythe over his shoulders. Shinigami Aragorn, Eisenwald's commander and ace. Aragorn flicked the cursed flute in his palm and laughed evilly. Good, nice work, Kageyama. Now we can get down to business. Great work, Kage-chan. We knew we could count on ya. Kageyama grinned as he was praised by his guild members. He flinched and clutched his shoulder in anguish as one of them patted him on the back. You alright, Kageyama? The others asked. Yeah. I'm fine. He moved his shoulder to alleviate the tightness. I ran into this punk from a legal guild and he got a lucky hit on me. One of those pathetic losers from Fairy Tail. Aragorn glanced up from admiring the lullaby flute and said, Fairy Tail? And he attacked you? Kageyama just nodded. Yeah. I mean, I got some good hits on him first, but... With a crazy expression in his eyes, Aragorn seized Kageyama's neck and suffocated him. Did they find out? Do they know about the flute? He snarled.
Gee gack. The other members exclaimed in horror as Kageyama gagged. He saw it for a sec. But I took it back before he knew anything. And he can't do anything to stop us. He strained to say. You're right, Aragorn said as he let go of the Shadow Mage's neck and gasped for air. But if he or any of his annoying little friends come running, you're going to pay for it, Kageyama. Aragorn walked down the aisle, holding the flute in front of him and smirking evilly. It's almost time for us to take away all of their light. But when Aragorn passed past the aisle chairs, he saw something that didn't belong. He took a step back and got a good look at it before asking his subordinates, what am I looking at?
They all rushed over and peered inside the seat. A blonde with whiskers was resting along the railway seat with his eyes closed and his hands clenched behind his head like a cushion. To everyone who saw him, he was softly breathing in and out and seemed to be asleep.
Aragorn carefully rotated his head to face the other Eisenwald members. He wasn't here when we were forcing everyone off. When the train left, only our guys were left on it. I swear we checked every compartment. I don't know where this guy came from, said a slender man wearing an Egyptian headdress.
Hey. A round guy approached the seat for a closer look and recognized the blonde. Doesn't he look familiar? Wasn't he sitting next to that chick in the armor we saw at the tavern the other day? The pretty red head? He said, pointing down at him.
Yeah, you're right, Karaka. He was totally there in the tavern after we found Lullaby. Huh, that's one hell of a coincidence, said a tall guy with rat whiskers on his face before nodding. That ferry I fought with earlier said he was with someone else, but they disappeared, and this car was only filled with our guys before we took off. Kageyama scratched his neck and gazed at the sleeping blonde on the chair. As he hoisted his scythe over his head, Aragorn didn't need to hear anything else. Aragorn-san. What are you? The other Eisenwald members frightened and took a step back.
There is no such thing as coincidence in our world, he said, lowering his scythe and aiming it at the blonde's sleeping face.
A gale-strong wind swept all of the members against the wall, filling the whole automobile. The powerful surge of wind ripped the doors off their hinges and smashed all of the windows. When the wind calmed down inside the automobile, the Eisenwald members got down on their hands and knees.
Kageyama shook his head and attempted to clear the ringing in his ears before seeing something he never expected to see. Aragorn-san, he mumbled. Aragorn stealthily grabbed his weapon and found that the blade of his scythe was fractured and shattered. He peered down at the whiskered blonde and noticed that the weird blast of wind hadn't even stirred him asleep. Tie him up. I don't know what he is, but don't let him out of your sight, Aragorn snarled at his minions.
Eisenwald's minions watched as their boss went away before fumbling and hunting for rope to tie up the sleeping blonde.
One of the whiskered man's eyelids sprang up, unnoticed by everyone, and he saw Aragorn step out of the automobile. He closed his eyes again and clicked his teeth.
Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. Natsu, stay away from the window. You'll fall out and get hurt.
Sweet relief. Right behind the glass. Must. Reach.
No. Lucy and Happy grabbed Natsu's vest and yanked him back in through the open window. Gray merely shook his head as he watched them attempt to entice the moron back in. He then pulled out the window to gaze out at their red-headed driver as she sped through the bustling streets. Urza, are you going to be okay? You've been diving for a while now. He cupped his palms over his lips.
I'm fine. Urza cried over her shoulder, concentrating on her work. If we can get to the train station before they leave again, we can catch the flute and stop Eisenwald.
Gray paused for a minute, thinking, what about Naruto? Don't worry about him. If I'm right, he's fine.
Urza came to a halt when they approached the Oshibana railway station, which was emitting columns of black smoke and had several hundred citizens gathered around the main gate. She slipped into a largely deserted space and parked her car, glaring impatiently.
Everyone, we are sorry for the commotion. There has been a disturbance in the center of the Oshibana station. Rest assured, a group from the military has entered inside to check for any signs of problems and we will know how everything is at any moment. Please, wait patiently and...
Urza, Gray, Happy, and Lucy made their way through the mob, carrying a dying Natsu on her back. They began coming up the steps when one of the station's employees interrupted them, saying, "Please wait. As I just said, there is no time." Urza yanked on his shoulder and flung him aside like a garbage bag. The residents were stunned when the employee let out a piercing scream before landing in the center of the gathering.
Gray and Lucy gazed back at the sad employee as Urza marched on. Gray dropped his head in sorrow, saying, "Poor bastard. Today was just not a good day to come to work."
Note to self. Never get in Urza's way. Lucy shivered in fear. Lucy. Your shaking is making Natsu's motion sickness act up. Stop moving, said Happy. I'm not a vehicle, and why do I have to transport him?
Gray just proceeded up the stairs, explaining, because you were the last one to touch their nose when we said who was carrying him.
There was no nose touching, you just threw him at me and left.
Come on, Lucy, don't be a jerk. Now hurry up, Madame Urza is going to kill us for being late. Lucy wanted to crush the obnoxious blue cat's skull between her hands, but she also didn't want to irritate the redhead. They all dashed inside the railway station, where they saw a small military battalion battered and laying on the steps. They marched forward to the middle platform after Urza confirmed that they were still breathing. They entered and discovered the people they were searching for. The silver-haired Shinigami on top of the train chuckled as he saw the fairy wizards finally arrive. When their opponents came, scores of Eisenwald wizards on the ground began to smile and chuckle. But there was Naruto in the front of the group, sitting on the floor with his arms and legs tied together, appearing asleep and with a few bruises on his face. Oh no,
LCUY said as he saw the image. Gray clenched his teeth and said, Naruto.
Urza frowned at the guild's chief. I just knew you lot were going to come, Aragorn smiled. Hey, Luki, chastised one Eisenwald member as he drew a rope wrapped around Naruto, we got you friend. Come any closer and we'll do a whole lot worse than beat him around.
You monsters. Lucy said. What are you trying to do? What could you possibly accomplish by taking a train station hostage? Urza asked the Dark Guild's chief.
Can't you see what we could accomplish? Aragorn stepped from the train and began floating in the air with his wind power. We're here to perform a little show, he said, hovering aimlessly and waving the lullaby flute.
A show? For all the busy bees buzzing around out there. The fairy mages stared up at the terrible wind mage, realizing he was targeting the civilians outside. How could you think of doing something like that? Lucy shivered in fear.
Because they all take it for granted. The carefree and easy lives they've been granted from birth. Blissfully unaware that people like us, people who have had our freedoms and decisions stripped away from us, have to fight for the right just to function and live. He held up Lullaby and smiled wickedly, and all of that with just a little melody. Gray looked at the Dark Guild and spewed anger at them, you bastards. So, before we get to the part about ending your miserable lives along with everyone else outside. Aragorn swung through the air and swirled his scythe in his palm before aiming it at the gathering of fairies, anything you might want to get off your chest. Yes, there is, Urza said as she took a step nearer, anticipating her to make a pompous farewell speech or threaten Aragorn and his minions with torture. But they all watched as Urza's eyes narrowed slightly and she scowled.
You can't possibly still be sleeping, right? Of course not. I was just waiting for the perfect opportunity to make my heroic debut.
Everyone turned to find Naruto standing tall and smiling without a care in the world, rope parts around his feet and spinning a huge chunk of it in his fingers. Naruto flung it aside before squatting and leaping several meters into the air with a powerful push. Naruto flew towards Aragorn at breakneck speed, attempting to capture the skull flute in his hand. Aragorn recognized what was going on and flew back, cradling the flute close to his bosom with his wind magic.
Naruto passed up the opportunity to grasp Lullaby and let out a deep grunt before spinning into the air and launching a hook kick towards Aragorn. The Shinigami shielded himself with his scythe, but after a few seconds of fight, his scythe split apart and Naruto's heel sank into Aragorn's chin. Eisenwald's commander was launched into the air and smashed through the central station's ceiling.
Eisenwald and the majority of the fairy mages were stunned as Naruto whirled into the air before landing elegantly next to Urza. Well rested and ready for battle, the great Naruto Uzumaki has finally arrived. He said, resting his hands on his hips and puffing out his chest. His hammy introduction was cut short as Urza jabbed him in the ribs. He staggered a bit and clutched his side before looking across at his fiancée and said, what was that for? You just ruined my introduction in front of all the baddies. This is why I told you to sleep last night while you still could. Urza said, you slept through my explanation. You slept through the train. I bet you slept through them beating you up. Well, I bet I could have slept through their punches easily. I've slept on pillows that were harder than their sissy little hits, Naruto said, as hundreds of Eisenwald members erupted in rage at the jab at their physical power. And I've been awake for a while, Naruto said to Urza. I woke up back on the train, when Natsu was fighting the guy with the pineapple hair, and he mentioned he was part of a dark guild called Eisenwald, and boom, I woke up. Naruto. Natsu leapt off Lucy's back and grabbed Naruto's collar, shocking Lucy with his rapid revival and further perplexing the Dark Guild. Where the hell were you when I was on the train? That was hell for me, you fucker. And why didn't you do anything while that pineapple-headed prick was trying to beat me up? Shouted Natsu. Oh come on Natsu, Naruto said encouragingly as he patted his friend's shoulder, you totally looked like you had a handle on the situation. Naruto then lifted Natsu's hand off his shoulder as the Dragon Slayer began screaming angrily, and I thought it would be better to stick with the Eisenwald guy on the train because I could follow him to their guild base and sneak attack them, but as it turned out, the whole guild was boarding. The fairy gang was taken aback by the blonde mage's meticulous planning of the whole situation. Lucy stared at the whiskered guy and concluded he had to be a great tactician and strategist to devise such a strategy.
You didn't actually think this through like that, did you? Said Urza, Natsu, happy, and gray.
Well, it was mostly on the go, but it worked out in the end. And they did try to kill me at one point, but I pulled through. Naruto grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Lucy just shook her head and chuckled awkwardly. The ideas and feelings she had for these mages were becoming more perplexing by the minute. She then blinked as she understood what was going on. Wait, why did you act like you were sleeping and unconscious while they caught you? She said, looking up at the blonde. That's the best part, Lucy. Guys like this, they always like to stroke their egos and talk about their plans. And they don't stop even when someone is playing dead behind them. So I heard their entire plan. Naruto turned towards the Dark Guild and smirked, like how they aren't actually attacking the train station.
The dark mages all stared in terror at the blonde man's realization, while the fairy mages gazed at him in disbelief. If they aren't attacking the train station, then what? Gray took a step forward.
Not another word. Ryul moved forward and sent many black bands out of his hands, while Kageyama shot forth multiple fists of shadow. They swooped down on the whiskered guy, intending to kill. Don't interrupt, X2. Natsu and Gray ran forward, fire and ice blasting away all of the assaults. The Eisenwald magicians were taken aback, and Natsu and Gray exchanged glances. They then glared and growled at each other, as if they were primeval monsters attacking areas. Anyway, Naruto scowled. They just came here to catch us and cut off the transportation, and they actually plan to move on to the next town. Naruto's brow pinched in rage, and attacked Clover, to try and kill everyone at the regular meeting.
When Naruto finished exposing the Dark Guild's actual goal, the fairy mages exclaimed in unison, "What?"
That's right, exclaimed Bjard as he burst out laughing. We're gonna kill all those damn geezers in Clover and throw all you stupid legal guilds into chaos. Those bastards are the ones who abandoned Eisenwald when it was being hunted by the Magic Council, so now it's time for us to get revenge.
You bastards. Gray screamed angrily. You think we'll let you hurt Ji-chan like that without a fight? Shouted Natsu.
Good thing I already put up a fight, Naruto muttered, grabbing Natsu and Gray's shoulders and ducking his head between them. How about you two go grab the flute from the guy the first sent flying through the ceiling while we keep these guys busy? Natsu and Gray exchanged glances before their eyes widened in surprise. Oh.
The Dragon Slayer and Maker Mage raced to the side and made for the stairs leading to the railway station's higher floors.
No way am I letting you get the flute, Kageyama said as he dissolved into a shadow.
Ryul grabbed the railing and pulled himself up. Oh no, you don't.
As they all went, Naruto, Urza, Lucy, and Happy were left alone to cope with the Dark Guild. You wanted to get stuck with these guys, didn't you? Urza said as she grinned and glanced at the man at her side.
Of course, this is where the fun begins, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles.
Not fun for me, Lucy said, gazing between the stronger mages. I've never been in a fight like this before, and I'd prefer to keep the tradition going for as long as I can. Oh Lucy, Happy joyfully exclaimed as he swooped around the busty blonde girl. You should be more afraid of Urza and Naruto than of the dozens of threatening dark mages who want to beat you to a pulp and exact their revenge in the most gruesome way.
How warped are your priorities here, cat? Seriously. Lucy grabbed the blue cat and began shaking him.
Don't worry, Lucy, the celestial spirit mage was reassured by the redhead. Just stay behind us and we'll take care of everything. You think two little fairy mages can take on the entire Eisenwald guild? Oh no, I'm sure one of us would be more than enough, but we're in a hurry, so we'll just double out right at the start, Naruto mocked. With a fierce cry, the Dark Guild became enraged. Naruto knelt and extended his hands, allowing Urza to insert her boot between his entwined fingers. While charging ahead towards the Dark Wizards, Naruto hurled Urza into the air. He whirled on his hands and kicked his assailants, while Urza swatted them all away with a spear she drew from thin air. Whoa, where did Urza get that spear? Said Lucy. It's her magic, Requip, Happy observed as the two S-class mages easily held back the Dark Guild members. Urza's magic works similar to yours, Lucy, but instead of spirits, Urza keeps a large arsenal of weapons in a separate dimensional space she can call on at any time. It's not a very uncommon form of magic, but Urza can use it to keep her entire armory ready for battle. Naruto uses it for his weapons as well, but his isn't as impressive as Urza's. Urza's spear was bathed in light to highlight his point, before two black swords emerged in her hands. She ran like a river through the mass of soldiers, parrying their sword attacks with her blades and cutting them down before they could respond. She's so strong. It's like fighting a force of nature, stuttered a few of the guys. Naruto paused in his combat to observe all of the dark mages fleeing from his lover. That's right, fear Urza. You stand no chance while you're open. Several mages took advantage of the situation while Naruto was off guard and launched a slew of ranged strikes into his side. As Lucy and Happy looked on in disbelief, the blonde was enveloped in a gigantic smoke cloud. Naruto! Shouted Lucy. A great force blew aside the smoke cloud, revealing Naruto with his left arm extended out and his whole sleeve ruined, but nary a single scratch on him. As a dazzling white light surrounded his hand, he flexed his prosthetic left arm and fisted it. He chuckled at the terrified men, on second thought. You should fear me too. Flying gauntlet, says the narrator. A thick ball of magical power was hurled into the midst of a gathering of dark mages, and the force of it blew them all away. Naruto uses a type of enhancement magic called Armor of the Night. It lets him cover any part of his body in a concentrated point of magic until his whole body is basically like a suit of armor. He can block ranged attacks, weapons, and his physical strength is enhanced depending on how much magic he puts into it. Amazing. Yeah. But this is only the beginning. Urza threw her swords in wide arcs, knocking numerous dark mages off their feet. Enough of this. You know you can't defeat us as you are. Surrender now and we will accept it without further injury. She swirled on her feet before halting and aiming her sword at her fearful opponents.
No way, bitch. You're going to have to work a lot harder than that to get us to submit. Very well. Urza closed her eyes before opening them again as her body was coated with a similar light, removing her armor for a minute and leaving her exposed for a few seconds.
For a brief while, the Eisenwald mages' mouths dropped open at the sight of the breathtaking beauty they witnessed, and they all exclaimed, "Woohoo, that's a show. Do it yet again." When he heard all the guys start catcalling Urza, Naruto stopped beating up his part of the Dark Guild. Oi! You better not be calling out at Urza, if you are. A black sheath appeared in his hand from his requip space and he slowly pulled the black blade out as a strong gale formed around him. You're gonna start wishing we knocked you out with the rest of your guys to save yourself the pain. The light around Urza dissipated, revealing her in a magnificent silver armor studded with wings and hundreds of swords hovering about her. This is the end, Urza said as she stepped inside her Heaven's Wheel armor. Urza and Naruto charged forward, decimating the final few hundred soldiers of the Eisenwald Guild. They had little chance as Urza's sword slashed through their defenses and Naruto swung his blade into the air, sending them flying. Lucy stared in awe as the two magicians battled in perfect unison, defeating the legion of dark magicians. Urza uses her requip to hold more than 100 different armors, each with their own distinct abilities, and Naruto can use wind just as well as Aragorn can, which is why they are known as the monster duo. At our guild, Happy grinned. One of the final two dark wizards overheard what the cat said and looked terrified at the fairy mages. A redhead who never stays in one form, swords dancing around her like fireflies and a wave of bodies behind her, and a blonde with a black blade and silver arm, destroying the land around him like a force of nature. It can't be. With murder on his mind, Bjard charged forward, collecting his power in his palm. You bastards, he cried.
And no, Bjard, they're fairy tales, monster duo, Titania and Hunter. We can't.
Naruto went forward and grabbed wind into his hand before Karaka could finish. Urza flew up and spiked the dark mage directly into the floor as he delivered a fast storm fist into Bjard's chest, causing him to collapse in the air.
The chubby mage gazed about as his vanquished friends covered the whole middle platform. In horror, he gazed up at Naruto and Urza while Bjard drew himself up to his elbows and cried, "Run, Karaka! They're too strong! Run!"
The overweight guy didn't waste any time turning around and diving for the wall. He began blending through the wall and away from the strong fairies by using his earth phasing.
But the wall collapsed, and Karaka fell flat on his face. He massaged his nose before glancing at the shattered wall and the debris it had created. "You didn't think we were going to let you run away that easily, did you?" said the blonde guy, cracking his knuckle.
"Ah, quiet." Naruto just bopped the guy on the head, knocking him unconscious. "Wow," Lucy exclaimed as she dashed into the midst of the throng of comatose wizards, staring between Urza and Naruto. I heard all the stories and rumors that you guys were strong, but you were phenomenal. I've never seen two people defeat an entire guild like that so quickly by themselves," she said. "She's starstruck," Happy said into his paw as he sailed about.
Lucy chuckled uncomfortably and pressed her fingers together. "Well, kinda."
"Thank you for the compliment, Lucy, but we have more pressing matters to deal with right now." Urza turned to the young blonde. "I need you to catch up with Natsu and Gray and look for Aragorn and Lullaby together. We have to make sure they stay in this station until we find them." "EA," squeaked the celestial spirit mage as Urza concluded her request. You see, I'm not very good at looking for people, especially murdering psychopaths who would kill me just to kill me so."
Lucy glanced up to see Urza's absolutely unamused expression. Lucy nodded. "Got it. Look for the psycho. On my way." The blonde newcomer dashed to the steps and began climbing as Happy soared behind her.
"You tried to disobey Urza. You shouldn't have tried to do that," he continued. "Shut up, cat." After those two had left, Urza transformed back into her base armor and fell back a little as a surge went through her mind. "You overworked yourself, didn't you?" Naruto said as he grasped her shoulders and helped balance her.
"Well, we were in a hurry. Gray was probably right about me taking it easy on the SE plug for the four-wheeler," she said, pouting. "Of course, it wouldn't have been so bad if you were there to help me drive." Sorry. I swear I won't do anything like that again," Naruto said before looking off to the side and shrugging. "Well, I'll try."
Urza merely smiled and shook her head, knowing it was probably the best conclusion she could hope for from her irresponsible lover. "I'm going to warn everybody to leave this place as soon as possible," Naruto said as she started heading for the front entrance. "This might not have been their intended target, but that doesn't mean they won't hurt the people outside if it helps them escape."
"Well, what am I supposed to do?" Naruto thought as he watched her walk away. "What do you mean?" Urza asked back, a sly smirk on her face. "I left you with the best part," she remarked before slipping out of his sight.
"The best part?" Naruto glanced around and saw nothing but the battered corpses of all the guys they had vanquished. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks, and he grumbled, "Aw shit, she left me with cleanup duty." He whimpered and shook his head before grabbing one of the men's legs and pulled. Note to self: never make Urza angry enough to leave you with the cleanup job. Hash 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 hunter hash 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 hash. "Hey, Windy, where'd you go? Come out, you bastard!" Natsu shouted as he began knocking down doors and looking for the Shinigami of Eisenwald. "Stupid Naruto, for leaving me to loot the body. Stupid Urza, for making me come on the job and leaving me on the train. Stupid Gray, for being Gray." Natsu opened a door to see the floor blown up and wrecked from underneath. He wasn't sure, but he knew this area was presumably above from the central platform, which meant that was where Aragorn and Lullaby should be. But none of them could be found. Shit, where'd he? Natsu blinked and glanced about.
As numerous fists sprang out of the gloom near his feet, the Dragon Slayer leaned back on reaction. As Kageyama climbed out of the shade, he backflipped through the air and landed on his feet. "Looks like Aragorn-san got away from your little game of tag, and now you're stuck with the rest of us," he smiled.
Natsu stared for a while before smirking. "Fine. The rest of my team can handle that windy prick on their own. You, on the other hand." Natsu's hands erupted into flames as he clenched them into fists. "I have some unfinished business with you." Hash 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 omake. Story transmission hash 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 hash. Lu-chan, cried Levi joyfully as she saw her new pal reading at a lunch table. I didn't know you were coming to the guild today. Weren't you going to take a break after Natsu and Happy convinced you to play a maid for a pervert? She said as she sat down. Yeah, I'm still a little sore about that. But I didn't have anything else to do, so I thought, why not relax here in the guild? Or, as much as you can relax in this place before a brawl starts kicking out. Well, I know you're angry at them for tricking you, and Lysina is going to punish them by taking away their coal and fish for the afternoon, but at least you got to show off your looks, huh? Levi smiled. I bet that guy didn't stand a chance with you acting all pretty in a maid outfit. And Lu-chan, why are you crying? I sniff. It's nothing, Levi-chan, Lucy murmured, wiping away tears. Like I said, a bit of a sore point. Well, let's just forget about it for now, okay? Levi saw the book the blonde rookie was reading and went up to her side to see what she was reading. What are you reading? Oh, it's a new book I just picked up yesterday. Lucy looked down at her book and smiled. It's a tale about warring countries and powerful bonds, friendships forged by fire and destroyed by betrayal. And it's the best. Lucy began dreaming. Oh, it's a powerful story and I feel sad sometimes reading it, but it's a great book when you can smile, laugh, cry, and feel sad all in the span of the chapters. Hee hee. You really like stories like that, huh? Chuckled the blue-haired girl before leaning in. Why don't you try writing your book about something like that?
I can't do that. This is a great book by someone with imagination. Lucy flushed and sulked. I can barely write past a chapter before I start regretting everything I've written.
But you're writing, Lu-chan. That's the best part. Levi tried to cheer her friend up by standing up. I love reading books and stories, but I don't have the ambition to write something like that of my own. Anyone can read a book. But there are a special group of people who write their own from the heart. That's why I'm cheering you on. Because you're doing something not many people have the courage to do.
Lucy brightened up a bit at her friend's support and smiled. Thanks, Levi-chan. Lucy sighed, but I'm in a rut. I can't think of anything else to write about. Nothing that pops out at me like this book does. Levi sighed as well, looking between Lucy and the book. It was one thing to persuade someone to continue writing their narrative. It was difficult to motivate them when they didn't even have a narrative to tell. Levi sat down and glanced around the room.
Before a notion entered her mind. Hey, I know a story you can write, she said as she grabbed Lucy's arm and began shaking. What? Lucy asked her new acquaintance as she raised her head. Yeah, there was a bunch of these old stories and tales that someone close to me always told me when we were together. They were so compelling and enticing that I always came up to him and asked if he could continue telling them to me. I'm sure you could write a story based on his tales. And the best part, he told me they were true stories. Are you sure? Lucy said. I mean, if you're telling them to me, doesn't that mean I'm just stealing your ideas? Even if they're just a story. Oh, you're probably right. Levi deflated as he grasped what she meant. Unless what? Levi asked, looking up.
Unless we work together. Partners in writing a book. You tell the story and I can write the words. What do you say, Levi-chan? You said there aren't a lot of people who are willing to take that extra step, right? Let's do it together. Lucy grinned and grasped Levi's hands.
Levi paused for a second before grinning and nodding. Okay. Let's do it. Great. Lucy let go of Levi's hands and leaned against the table, eager to listen. Okay. Tell me this great tale. Levi smiled and settled into her seat before coughing into her hand and beginning to tell her story. Our story begins in a large forest in a distant land, with two boys who are strangers to each other tossing stones across a large creek. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast and for listening to this video. I hope you did enjoy the story, and if you did, like, share and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.